Good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening. It's been one of those very long evenings, but it's a pleasure being here. Pleasure listening to the entire panel for about a little bit now.
It's been out. Yeah, we've run long, but let's start. How do you feel? How does the PDP feel about what has been presented to Tobago today?
So the reality is that possibly the most exciting thing about this budget today was the fact that there is no VAT, or there will be no VAT on pigtail. That is the most exciting thing that came out of the budget when you really think about what Tobago wants, when you think about what Tobago needs, when you think about what Tobago deserves. That is the single most exciting thing. And anybody who goes into this saying that they are very happy, that they are, they're fine with the allocations, how can you, if the budget that you send is for $4.7 billion, how could you be fine with $2.something billion? Is it that you should not have sent the 4-point-something request in the first place? I simply don't understand that kind of rationale to be happy or to be satisfied or to be comfortable with a budget like this, other than the pigtail.
Mr. Jack, you have a question for Dr. Faith Israel?
I was just trying to figure out who you were. That was sort of, yeah. No, I'm familiar with the name, but in person, I don't really know the person. So you're saying that the budget is reasonably well received? Is that what you were saying?
No, it's not well received at all.
Can we have some volume?
Yeah, so it's not well received at all.
What would you have liked to see different?
Okay, so this is very simple. Tobago is at a point where we have been underdeveloped for as far back as you could look at. If you look at the GDP per capita of Trinidad and Tobago, it is over 15,000 US dollars. If you look at the GDP per capita of Tobago, it is a little over 4,000. We have to compare 15,000 to 4,000. That means that the economic activity that has been happening on the island of Tobago has been nowhere close to where it should be, and certainly nowhere close to Trinidad. What does that mean? We need to actually spend a little bit more time identifying exactly which institutions we need to inject direct investment into. Now, my degree is in public health, but I know that there are people who have economic backgrounds that we should listen to. One of those people is Dr. Vanus James. A couple of days ago, Dr. James spoke about the fact that to get a 1% increase in the economic activity in Tobago, we need to inject about $600 million every year. But because Tobago is so far behind everything else, it means we need to look towards injecting something that would give us close to 6 to 8% improvement or increase in activity. That by itself is $3.5 billion injection. What we gathered, what we got today, was a budget that says $2.something billion is going to recurrent funds and $264 million is going to development.
All right, so if we get that injection...
Can I just say quickly though, that is a slap in the face when you think about the fact that the Red House in Port of Spain, the renovation of the Red House took $441 million to do, just the Red House. And you're saying that we are going to give Tobago $264 million for the entire year as it relates to development. There's no way we could be happy with something like that when we need to play catch up, and we need to play catch up in a way that is so significant.
So that if we should get a major injection of that kind of a fund, so, and you're speaking about every year, am I correct? That we need so much every year?
At least for the next 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Could you give us some examples of how you're going to actually use that monies?
Sure. So we have a situation where, for example, we are going to plug $1.something billion into an airport. Into an airport that I am sure no one has ever gone to a country because of the airport, and no one has ever not gone to a country because of the airport. If we are saying that tourism, for example, is one of our largest generators of income, then we need to inject into the tourism product. And injecting into the tourism product does not necessarily mean injecting into the airport. What we need to do is to tie other things to our tourism product. If that means such as education. So if we had a real University of Tobago in Tobago that was geared towards not just Tobagonians, but geared towards ensuring that we bring people from all over the world to Tobago to study the amazing things that we have in Tobago. For example, we have our entire rainforest that I am sure probably has the cure to COVID right here in Tobago. And we had people coming in and doing that kind of study. We could be generating so much foreign exchange via tourism, but having it linked to another agency, another industry, such as educational tourism.
So
the same thing should have happened.
Some idea about the time within which it will take to get to whatever point you're foreseeing? Is it going to take 6 months, a year, 10 years? What projection do you have?
This is going to take several years. And we're talking about at least a 5-year injection of that kind of money. Because remember, we're not even starting from scratch here. We are starting from below scratch right now. When you compare that 15,000 versus that 4,000. So we are talking about a situation where we are going to take at least another 5 to 10 years to even get us up to where we need to be at baseline, because we've been so lagging behind.
Okay, so if it's going to take you that many years, and say, for instance, the election period is 4 years, what are you going to be doing with such a project so as to show that linkage and continuity into the project? How you propose to do that? In other words, what I'm saying is, like, at one time, well, I still think that in Tobago we should have a central policy development and implementation unit, well staffed with the IT that we are now talking about, and the purpose of that organization, which may comprise about 50, 100 people, would be the brain of development in Tobago. So, in other words, we have to prepare a charter for Tobago, where we want to go, and then start to work with the kids and everything back, and to link this thing going. When you have situations where government is changing every 2 minutes, and everybody wants to get rid of anything that anybody else bring to play, how do you propose to counteract that kind of mindset that because somebody else has started it, it cannot be continued with? How do we do that?
Well, we have to do two things. One, we have to start by actually creating that plan. Currently, Tobago does not have a developmental plan. We had the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan that has been out of commission in terms of timeline for several years now, so that would help. Now, the other thing that is critical is actually having agencies or entities on the island that collect real data, so that when we are making decisions, it is based on having real information that is accurate, that is timely, to allow us to make the different decisions that we make. That also requires a bit of political will, because I think it is unfortunate that so many of the political parties that have been on the landscape have decided that because it wasn't my party, I am not going to do it. I could say very clearly now that the Progressive Democratic Patriots, it's not like that. We have been setting out plans that are very clear, and some of them are hinging on what has currently happened. The unfortunate thing, though, is that for the last 20 years in Tobago, not much has happened. So we need to step back and think through whether we need to just keep throwing money at different projects the way we've been doing it, or whether we need to have a comprehensive plan that pulls all of these things together, so that even if we are doing something that we know is going to take 5 years or 10 years, we know that what we do this year is going to be linked to 5 years down the road, because we've already done that kind of planning, and we are executing with that kind of planning in mind.
Mr. Walker, you had a...
Yeah, I want to make a comment and then ask a question.
Sure.
Evening, Dr. Israel.
Good evening.
The first comment is really to put forward a thought that I have been repeating year after year after year, and it is that we should be agitating that when we get the budget, we simply get a budget allocation, and that we here should decide how much we want to spend on recurrent and how much we want to spend on capital. So if we want to make the sacrifice and reduce the recurrent expenditure, we could free up money to spend on the development trust. So that's just a comment, and you could comment on it as well if you wished. And the second thing is a question for the PDP. One of our greatest problems is the lack of openness, transparency, and accountability, which results in waste and corruption. How will a PDP administration, if one were to come into being, deal with how do you assure me that that will be a thing of the past?
Certainly. So going back to your comment, I agree with you, and as a matter of fact, as the minority councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly between 2017 and 2021, one of the things that I have said at every budget debate was that the Tobago House of Assembly has a responsibility after the national budget is read to actually rethink the entire budget and present a new budget to Tobago. Because in every situation, if you ask for 4.7 billion and get 2-point-something billion, you have to do a whole lot of rethinking and reevaluating and re-strategizing to make that work. That is simply basic economics, bread and butter issues, as a matter of fact. As it relates to transparency, one of the things that the Progressive Democratic Patriots has been speaking about is several things. We want to move away from this idea of Tobagonians only hearing about projects after we have signed on the dotted line and after we have made all of the decisions. We want to implement a system where people, the man on the ground, the fisherman, the technical person in a particular area can actually say to the Tobago House of Assembly, this is what we want you to do, this is what we want you to study, this is what we want you to debate, this is what we want you to bring forward. Now the flip side is also there. One of the things we have proposed, and it is in our mandate for January, it will be in our mandate again, is to have the same kind of very open information sharing. So for example, if we have a contract that is about to be awarded for whatever reason, every Tobagonian should know that they could go up on this website, they could identify who are the individuals who bid for the contract, they could identify the person who got the contract versus who didn't get the contract, because you know what, it is not going to be my friend or my family, it is going to be a person or a company that has worked hard and that has really gotten the contract because they have the merit to get it. We don't intend to continue with these things being secret because it is our friend and our family getting it. No, we need to have a kind of openness, and that can only happen if we have continual information being placed in the public space because we have nothing to hide.
Faith, I have 2 questions before we close. One, Cove, waste of space, and how will the PDP transform it? So waste of space, question mark, and how will the PDP transform it?
You know, when we started with COVE, we were told that COVE was going to be our answer to everything. We were told that COVE was going to be our answer to having electricity issues. I had to use my phone on Friday to do an interview because we had, not Friday, Saturday, to do an interview because we did not have electricity. We are now being told that a huge chunk of COVE is going to be given to a foreign entity, and we don't even know. We had to hear this on the grapevines in an international media house to do that. COVE is an area where we should be specifically focusing on some of the light manufacturing that we can do in Tobago for Tobagonians. Now, the reality is the size of our population, the size of our market in Tobago, it may be difficult to do it large scale to try to compete with Japan or China and those places, but we can actually propel our local manufacturers to keep doing what they need to do to make our local supply available. But that needs to happen with all sectors. That needs to happen with agriculture, where we could work towards providing local foods for us to eat, because we have the land. Tobago has some of the most fertile lands that we could spend a little bit of time actually working with the farmers to ensure that they do bulk farming, mass farming, so that we know in a particular area we have this group of farmers doing this particular product, because we know we have markets for it locally, we have markets for it in Trinidad, and if we have more, we have markets for it to send internationally. Those are the kinds of things that we need to work on, instead of saying that we are going to look at strawberry when we don't even know where that is coming from. We don't even know where that is going. We don't even know how we would benefit from that. Those are the kinds of decisions that Tobago should be making for ourselves and not hearing about them because the cabinet made that decision for us.
Last question. I just spoke to Secretary Jack and I asked him, you know, he talked about consultation that was done across the country with everyone, and I asked him, I said, I did not hear you mention that you consulted with the PDP, to which he said the PDP did not accept the invitation. How do you feel about that, and how does that augur for the PDP going forward?
He's accurate. As a matter of fact, the letters that he spoke about, I am the one who penned them. What you should have asked was what was written in the letters. Since the January 25th, the night of January 25th, we recognize that this was an opportunity, 6 on one side, 6 on the other, for us to come together, work together, form the Tobago House of Assembly, and do what we need to do on behalf of the people who elected us. While we were trying to do that, those on the other side kept telling us that we could not do it because it did not fall in line with the law. That is what they kept saying. It is not legal to do this, it's not legal to do that, the law says this, the law says that, the law says the other. When they asked about the consultation, what I wrote on behalf of the party and told them was that the law says that there is the Tobago House of Assembly needs to be properly constituted, and we need to have a full debate on behalf of the people of Tobago in full view of total Tobago to ensure that we go through the legal and accurate process to do this. We are not going to be part when you have ignored us for the last how many months, but because you need to say you did consultations now, you call us in for 2 hours to say we did consultation when you have completely ignored us, ignored who the people of Tobago elected for half of the island. You are not going to just bring us in for a consultation at that point, just to say on TV, you consulted with the Progressive Democratic Patriots. That is what he should have told you, because that is what we said to him. If you wanted, we could have the same night that we received the letter, come together, constitute the Tobago House of Assembly, and do the thing right according to the laws of the Tobago House of Assembly. We were not going to participate in any puppet show consultation, because that is what they are used to, and we are not going to be part of that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Israel, for being my guest tonight. I know I started you up, and I will have to continue, but thank you for being my guest tonight. Thank you for being part of the discussion. You know, gentlemen, we reached the point of wrap up, and I would love to hear your